continue to experience the atrocities of the Ukraine. We are a country now that is struggling with the issue of abortion. And I'm wondering whether or not we are fully aware of just how powerful we are as human beings. I'm wondering whether or not we really capture the sense that we are, in many ways, all-powerful and we are fearful. We have the power to create and we have the power to destroy. And we find ourselves, I think, often moving in and through these events of our life without really understanding that without some sense of values put to this, without some sense of discipline put to this, we end up in a situation where our power overcomes and can destroy and limit others. Values is something that, Donna and I have been spending a lot of time talking about lately. Typical family, friend situations that you have where they're moving in and out of relationships. They have, children who are very small. They've gotten married, they've had the children, and now they're moving on. And of course, the children are the ones who are left there. You're wondering what possibly could have changed within a year and a half of getting married and having a child, where now you are looking to get divorced. How does that happen? How does it happen that children are caught between family members who divorce, and I'm not talking about incidents of divorce where there's legitimate reasons. I'm talking about just the fact that people just don't want to work at it or try at it anymore. And so it is easier for them, it's less painful for them simply to walk away from a relationship and to go down and get a piece of paper and, fill out this form and then fight over, whether or not, this child is really mine or not, right? I mean, you've just had this child. You were there all this time. Now, all of a sudden, we're arguing whether or not the child is yours or not. I'm not sure whether or not we fully comprehend the power that we have to create or destroy in life. And we can look at the Ukraine and we could look at that big issue and we could see how one man's decisions really are impacting, an entire globe at this point. I was thinking the other day, because Putin is really big about talking about using nuclear weapons. And I, just sit with that for a minute. The fact that there's an individual who has that level of power and authority, that he can utilize a weapon of incredible mass destruction like that and hold everyone else at bay from doing what they know is right and good. I'm just not sure whether or not we fully comprehend the power that we each have. Now, that is a big scale, but then there's others as well all throughout our lives. The people that we converse with, the people we have relationships with, the people that in our own families, the ones we determine whether or not they will be part of our inner circle or not. We do this all the time. People we determine whether or not we are going to talk to or not. Those types of displays are really displays of power. We make choices that actually can build up or break down others. And you might say that it's not the same as something at the level of a Ukraine, but I have witnessed and I have counseled the people who are on the other side of being rejected, and I can assure you their pain and their suffering is just as great as what is happening in the Ukraine. Maybe we're not talking about mortality, but as far as destroying the person's spirit, this is very real. What are the values that we live up to now? Not not just here in the United States, we're enormously blessed with more power than everyone else, and we probably have to be more cautious than everyone else, and we really need to take a look at our value situation. What is it that, as a country, that we value? But then if you look at Congress, you could even see there what you used to think was right or wrong isn't no longer right or wrong. There are all these shades of gray that are being painted in there. And I'm not getting political. I'm talking about the human experience of trying to figure out what is it that we value over something else. What is it that we hold to rather than and above something else? And that applies to a number of different topics. The issue really does come down to the fact that I think we have not been really good at trying to, as human beings, forget about being Christians, but just as being human beings, we have, I believe in some regards, become very cold and calloused to others. And I think some of it is our experience that we don't want to get hurt. I think some of it is our own past, our histories, that have tainted us in such a way that we are really great at building walls and dividers between one another. I thought when COVID first hit, I really thought that it was going to be revolutionary on how we were going to think and behave and act toward one another. Because we all realized that we were really just a breath away from one another. And when you have that sense of profound awareness, there is this impulse, I think, that is natural to sort of say to yourself, I'm going to trust a little bit more. I'm going to be more compassionate, more caring. And then we found that the things that may or may not have helped with COVID became the very weapons that we were using against each other to divide ourselves. And I really thought that was a moment in our evolution as human beings that had this chance of bringing us tighter and closer together, because we really would understand, and we still can understand, that we are just a breath away. And what we do directly impacts another person. What we do in even the slightest way either builds up and adds to the positive values of the world, of the society we want to live in, or not. I think it's really that simple, but these are choices that all of us need to make day in and day out about exactly what is it that we want our world to be. Not allowing anyone else to dictate how society goes, that we all have a voice, and those voices must be spoken up. We must engage, because otherwise we have a whole bunch of other folks who perhaps are making decisions for us as a society that we're not in agreement with, and nor should they. But somehow, I'm afraid that we have lost our values or are losing our values because I'm not sure we are aware enough for ourselves that these things really are at risk, and that we all have a responsibility to engage. Now, this is all without religion, and this is all without calling ourselves Christians and the Christian overlay that comes upon us and our responsibilities that we have. If we are bearing the name Christian, then our lives and our values should closely represent what it is that Jesus wanted of us, how he behaved, how he acted. What was his character like? What were his teachings? What was it that he was asking? Not how people go into the Bible and they find one verse, something mentioned once, and then they make up an entire, religion tradition out of this. And so anyone who's that, and because it says it in this one line, now all of a sudden they're the ones who are the enemy, and those are the ones that we fight against. And look, those are the bad people. I got to tell you, I've been in ministry, 25 years now. We all got issues. We're all the same in the fact that we're all broken. We're all the same in the sense that we're all fearful. And because we are fearful, it is really easy for us to want to divide and separate ourselves one from another, to declare that we are better, to declare that somehow we are holier or more sanctified. I don't even know what those words are meant to mean in a tradition, in a history, in a gospel life where Jesus has already fulfilled all of that, and we are all the same. We're all broken, but we're all redeemed. And so, as we're looking at our world, and as we're looking at our own lives, we come up against this point here where Jesus talks about the fact that none of us are separated from God, that all of us who believe are held closely to God. There's no requirements on any of that statement, except for the fact that we believe that Jesus is the Christ. And the fact that he is the Christ, we're held. God holds us, that none of us would be lost. We have this tree in the backyard that probably will have to stay there a very long time now. There are two. What kind of birds are those, Ben? Huh? Yeah, we have two partridges in our backyard. They've been there now 2 years, and they like this one tree, and they had built a nest there last year. And it's really kind of interesting because the nest, where our lounge chair is, the nest is literally 1.5 feet away, which is really kind of odd for birds, I think, right? They'd probably be somewhere else often. And this year we noticed that they're coming back again. And they sort of scoped it out for a couple of days, trying to figure out if this was really the spot. And then I guess mom or dad, or maybe both, who do the work of fixing the nest, they start going in and they start checking it out and seeing what they need. And then collectively, they'll disappear. And then they'll come back and they'll work on whatever pieces of straw or hay or whatever it is that they have. And you see this whole thing going back and forth, where they have spent, probably about a week now, maybe 10 days, rebuilding this nest. And now, as of the other day, mom is staying put. She's not leaving. She's just there. So you know that there's going to be, little ones running around. And it was kind of cool last year because you could watch the mother teach the little ones how to fly. And because it's literally at eye level, you get to watch all this. But the thing that really amazed me was the trust and the confidence that the two birds had in each other, that this wasn't just something one was supposed to do. This was something that the two of them were involved in. Now, I do have to admit, at certain points in time, one bird's chirping would get louder than the others. Now, it is my consideration that it was probably the mother bird yelling at the father bird. But that's only because this is my experience. And so that may or may not be true. However, it could have been the dad bird, who was more of a architectural type person who wanted certain things a certain way. However, it's a right possibility. See, I'm playing both sides here, so no one could get mad at me. No letters this week, okay? No letters. But the fact is that, in and through this whole process, even in the simplicity of creation of just birds and nesting and bringing about a family, there they are side by side, working this out and doing this. And because mom is not running around now and she's getting ready to lay eggs, I'm sure it's the other one now who's running around trying to get food and doing what they need to do. But each has a job, each has a responsibility, and there is a value system here. And I don't think it's silly, but I think it's in its simplicity, it's important for us to look at. There's a value system. One does one thing, one does the other, and they appreciate the fact that they're each doing what they need to do to bring about, the life of their children and provide for them. And they will. They will all the way through to when the little one flies up, right? And then gets onto the power line and doesn't know how to get from the power line back down to the nest and sits there for a long time. And then mom goes up and sort of pushes him along, and then he jumps back down to the nest. This is a family unit. Children are meant to be raised in a family unit. The mother and the father are both meant to be contributing to the development, of the child and the welfare of the child. And some of the conversations that my wife and I have had about just family and friends and relationships, you feel so bad because there's none of that value, in and through what they're experiencing. Because one person has become selfish or self-centered and just decides that this is. But at what point do we as a society, and maybe even, we as Christians have a greater responsibility, when do we rebuild our values? When do we actually sit down and say, this is what we want and this is what we're going to try and promote? And therefore, everything on TV and commercials and everything else will try to start promoting exactly those values so that we come away and we and our children are embraced by and exposed, to positive values of that like. And as Christians, don't we have a responsibility above all else, to be trustworthy and confident one to another? It's just a reflection from this week. I really do think our power and our ability to bring about goodness or devastation is right at the tips of our fingers. And I'm not sure we really understand that. I'm not really sure we understand the power and the control that we really do have over what happens next in our society. God bless you.